All right, today we're going to dive into the mind of a legend, Charlie Munger. We're distilling the absolute best ideas from his masterpiece, Poor Charlie's Almanack. And let me tell you, this isn't just about investing. It's really a blueprint for life, for learning, and for making way, way better decisions.
And it all kicks off with this classic Munger quote. It sounds kind of like a joke, right? But it perfectly captures his entire philosophy. The most reliable way to win is to just consistently avoid losing. He called it inversion, and trust me, it's an absolute game changer.
And that really gets to the heart of it. See, Munger thought that trying to be brilliant all the time is a fool's game. The real, sustainable advantage comes from a much more humble goal. Just try to be consistently not stupid. It's a lot harder than it sounds, because as we're about to find out, the biggest enemy we face is usually ourselves. So that leads us to the big problem Munger spent his entire life thinking about. The truth is, our own brains are, well, they're hardwired with glitches. He called them cognitive biases, and they're constantly pushing us toward bad decisions, usually without us even noticing. So what he did was, he actually identified and cataloged 25 of these psychological tendencies. You can think of them like bugs in our mental software that just systematically screw up how we see the world and mess with our ability to think straight. Let's take a look at a couple of the really big ones. Okay, first up is a huge one, social proof. This is that powerful, almost automatic instinct to think and act just like the people around you. It's the herd instinct, and it gets especially dangerous when we're feeling stressed out or confused. So what does this actually look like in the wild? Well, think about when you see everyone piling into a hot new stock, or when they're all panicking during a market crash. That is social proof in action. Your brain is just screaming, hey, if everyone else is doing it, it must be the right move, even when the herd is sprinting right off a cliff. Now for another one, and this one is really subtle but incredibly powerful, the inconsistency avoidance tendency. See, our brains are absolutely obsessed with being consistent, so much so that we will fight to stick with our past decisions and beliefs, even when there's clear evidence that we were wrong. This is the bias that makes it so hard to just admit a mistake. It's why people keep pouring money into a project that's clearly failing, not because it's a smart move, but because changing their mind would feel like admitting they failed personally. But here's the kicker, and this is where it gets really scary. Munger figured out that these biases almost never act alone. They pile on top of each other, they reinforce each other, and they create what he called a Lollapalooza tendency. It's a perfect storm of irrationality that leads to just disastrous decisions. Okay, so if our brains are kind of broken, what are we supposed to do about it? Well, Munger's solution is just brilliant. We need to install a better mental operating system, and he called it the latticework of mental models. Now, this isn't about memorizing trivia or just collecting facts. It's about building an interconnected framework, a latticework of the biggest, most powerful ideas from a whole bunch of different fields. It gives you a mental toolkit so you can look at any problem from multiple angles, not just one. And this is Munger's direct fix for what he called the man with a hammer syndrome. You know that old saying, right? To a man with only a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. When you're a narrow specialist, you only see the world through one lens, and that is a recipe for terrible judgment. For Munger, this was non-negotiable. Real wisdom required this kind of breadth. You couldn't just understand economics. You had to pull in the big ideas from psychology and physics and biology and history to build a mind that was truly robust and effective. So out of all those tools in the latticework, Munger had a favorite, a master heap, really. The one he came back to again and again for clear thinking: inversion. His whole idea was that turning the problem completely upside down is often the clearest way to find a solution. So instead of asking how to succeed, you ask, what would absolutely guarantee that I fail? And then you just don't do those things. And look, the process itself is surprisingly simple, but don't let that fool you. It is incredibly powerful. Let's say you want to build a great company. Invert it. Ask, what would make a company just awful? Well, terrible products, horrible customer service, dishonest leadership. Okay, your plan is now crystal clear. Just avoid doing any of that. It works for pretty much any problem you can think of. And you gotta understand, this isn't just some abstract thought experiment for business or investing. Munger applied this way of thinking to everything, and he ended up creating a complete philosophy for how to live a successful and, more importantly, an ethical life.
So in one of his most legendary talks, he took this idea of inversion and he applied it to the biggest question of all. He didn't ask, how can I be happy? No, he inverted it. He asked this, what would absolutely guarantee a life of misery? And the list he came up with is just so simple, but so profound. By just avoiding these really common, self-inflicted wounds, you almost can't help but put yourself on the path toward a good life. It's genius. And really, it all boils down to this one core ethical principle. Think of it like the physics of success. It's not about finding some secret shortcut. It's about building the character, the knowledge, and the reliability that actually makes you deserve the success you want. And I think this is the big takeaway from all of Munger's wisdom. Being a continuous, lifelong learner and being a trustworthy, ethical person, they aren't two separate goals. They are the two pillars that hold up a life of real success and real contentment. So let's wrap this up exactly where Munger would want us to, with a direct challenge. He said over and over that the easiest person to fool is always yourself. So the real question to take away from all this is, knowing that, how are you going to use these tools to see the world a little more clearly and avoid fooling yourself starting today?